Welcome back to Books with AR, Chapter 24, Cultivation. After gathering a lot of spring water from the mountain, Wang Lin began to make spiritual energy-filled spring water. When it was 10 at night, he locked his door. As a precaution, he tied one end of a rope to the door and the other end to his arm, so he would know right away if someone opened it. After drinking a few large gulps of spring water, he felt his body heat up. He then stared at the bead to enter the dream. In the endless dream space, Wang Lin sat cross-legged as he started to cultivate. When he was cultivating, the lights all around him became more gentle. Wang Lin wasn't aware of this, but the lights entered his body. After staying there for a day, all the spiritual energy from the spring water was gone. But this time, he could clearly feel the difference in his body. Before, when he would finish Sun Daju's medication, he felt heat. However, in the most critical moment, all the spiritual energy would scatter. But this time was different. Even though they still scattered, there was still a sliver left in his body. Although it was not a lot, Wang Lin gained a lot of confidence from those results. After considering it for a while, he couldn't figure out why it was different. So, in the end, he could only speculate that it was because of the mysterious stone bead. Because he couldn't leave the dream of his own will to get more spring water, he could only continue to cultivate for a long time. In the end, he realized that there was a difference between the dream space and outside. Outside, even though he had been cultivating for more than a month, he would feel refreshed and very comfortable after cultivation. But here, after the spiritual energy from the spring water had all dissipated, he didn't have the refreshed and comfortable feeling. Instead, when he kept cultivating, he felt short of breath. After hesitating for a while, Wang Lin guessed that it was related to the existence of spiritual energy. There was no natural spiritual energy in the dream space. The more he thought, the more he felt he was correct. He frowned, thinking, if there was only a way to bring in the spring water from outside, it would all be good. Thinking about it, his heart suddenly skipped a beat as he looked at his own body and revealed a puzzled expression. Wang Lin was very puzzled by the red disciple uniform he had on. He quickly checked the pocket where his bag of holding was and found it missing. Clothes can appear in the dream space, but the bag of holding couldn't appear. He bitterly thought about it and decided to experiment on what items could or could not be brought into the dream space once he leaves. Time passed by quickly. After 50 hours had passed, the feeling of being torn apart appeared and woke Wang Lin up. He still had a question in his heart. Why could he only stay in the dream for 5 hours? With that question in mind, he filled a gourd with spring water and carried it on his shoulder, ready to enter the dream. But this time, no matter how he stared at the bead, he didn't feel the usual drowsiness. Wang Lin was frightened. After thinking for a long time, he contained the fear in his heart and sat down to cultivate. Gradually, as his breathing steadied, the natural spiritual energy was absorbed by his body. As it dissipated, some remained in his body. However, this was still far from the first layer of Qi Condensation. He spent the whole day cultivating. He kept drinking the spring water to keep his body filled with spiritual energy. In addition, he always held the stone bead, hoping to enter the dream space again, but failed to do so every time. Night came. He opened both his eyes and could feel that the spiritual energy in his body had increased by a little. If it was normal, he would be very excited. But he was restless. He looked at the bead again and suddenly felt drowsy. Wang Lin revealed a happy expression as he looked away to expel the drowsiness. He stood up, rubbed his chin while pacing around the room, pondering over what had happened before and after he entered the dream, and finally found the problem. The first 2 times he entered with almost no time in between. The third time was 5 hours after the second, and the fourth time was a whole day after the third. Following this logic, there were some restrictions on entering this dream space. To be safe, one should wait 5 hours after a use to guarantee entrance. After resolving that issue, Wang Lin began to prepare to test what he could bring into the dream space. He ended up gathering a lot of things, including 3 gourds. One was a gourd with some remaining dew, one was empty, and one was filled with spring water. He even put a piece of the broken stone bowl in his pocket, and in addition, took out a sweet potato and a cloth from his bag of holding and bound them to his body before entering the dream again. In the dream space, Wang Lin quickly checked his body. The sweet potato, broken stone bowl, and cloth were all there, but the 3 gourds and his bag of holding weren't. He concluded that, without a doubt, there was no spiritual energy within this dream realm. So any normal item, in other words, any item without any spiritual energy, could be brought in. The 3 gourds and the bag of holding all contained some spiritual energy, therefore they couldn't be brought in. Letting out a sigh, he began to think bitterly. He couldn't bring the gourd in there, and the few gulps he took from the gourd before going into the dream weren't enough to last him for the full duration of his stay. After thinking about this, an idea flashed in his mind. He felt like he had an idea, but couldn't grasp it. The feeling of an idea just outside his reach made him go deep into his thoughts, organizing his ideas one by one. After a long time, his expression turned happy as he grasped one key point. The spiritual energy-filled water couldn't be brought in, but the spiritual energy that entered his body didn't disappear. It was that you couldn't bring objects with spiritual energy in there, but if he thought carefully, he might find a way